and welcome to this, our educational video on how to use the Octi-Hoops free motion embroidery and free motion quilting frames. I am the inventor of this product. My name is Clare Rowley, and I also have a free online school that you should join so that you have access to me whenever you may have a question, and also you can participate and join in with all the fun of all the other people who also chose to purchase one of my Octi-Hoop kits. The Octi-Hoop package comes packaged like you see here inside of a bag that you can open and reclose so that you can put everything back in it when you're not using it, should you want to. Depending on which option you chose to purchase, you may or may not have the same ingredients that I'm going to show you now. So once you remove the contents from the bag, you'll find that you have some instructions and sheets with links to help you find other videos to help you enjoy the Octi-Hoops to the fullest. It comes packaged like you see here with a cardboard square with some of our stick and tear stabilizer wrapped around it. This is actually one of our products that helps you to embroider, and it is available in different size rolls. If you just want to play it safe, the 12-inch length roll is your best option, as it does fit all of the different size Octi-Hoop frames in one size roll. You get additional stabilizers inside the kit. This is one I call Stick and Rinse, and this one is called Cover Up. I will show you in this video how we use them, so be sure not to discard any of these stabilizers. If you chose to get the DVD option, then you will have a DVD in the kit. If not, you won't have one, and this video is this DVD. So if you're watching it online, you do not need that DVD. This is a set of 2 Octi-Hoop handles that help you to steer our hoop without having to put your hands down on top of the hoop. Instead, you take these handles and they drop into these holes that are on all 8 sides of all 3 of the different frame sizes that come inside of the Octi-Hoop kit. Each of the frames drop down in size, starting at 7.5, going to 9.5, and then 11.5. So a 12-inch wide roll of the stick and tear is perfect for all 3 sizes of hoops. We will sometimes use only one hoop and stabilize the back to do machine embroidery. Holding onto this handle, you will hold just like you do when you hold a piece of paper, one hand on the hoop to kind of stabilize it, and the other hand draws. So if you're left-handed, you would use your left-handed posture. When you're first starting, you might find that it is helpful to use 2 handles and steer in this manner. And also, if you're working with young children, it is good for them to do this because there's no chance of them putting their fingers inside of the area where the needle goes. For free motion quilting, we will use 2 frames at once. When using 2 frames at once, you have to choose which frame you want on top and which frame you want on bottom. To determine which frame should be used on top, you base this on the size of your hand. If your hand does not go all the way to the inner area of the frame, then you want to go to the next size down so that your fingers do reach that area within the frame, and that makes it so that when you're using the hoop with the handle, you're less likely to start raising your hand up in the air. And when you do raise your hand up in the air or lift your elbows, that is when you will find that you lose control. When you lift your elbow when sewing, that's when you become unstable and you kind of wobble a little bit. And it also, you might start to experience muscle strain between your shoulder blades. So when working with the Octi-Hoops, I'm always going to recommend that you put your elbows down on your table or on the sewing machine as you're using it to take away any unnecessary strain on your body and also to stabilize you so that you can be more accurate and have a better experience when using them, either for embroidery or for quilting. The first thing I'm going to show you is how we use it for machine embroidery. This is the smallest frame, and while I could use the largest frame, I'm going to do a small embroidery project, so I'm going to use the smallest frame. It is up to you what you do. Take the stabilizer that came with the kit that's wrapped around the cardboard, our stick and tear stabilizer, the one with the green frog on the label, and place the hoop that you choose to use for your embroidery over the surface that has like a texture to it, and then lay the hoop on top of the stabilizer and trace around the hoop. If you so choose to, you can cut around the frame using your rotary cutter. However, I find I have less waste when I use scissors. This stabilizer is made of polyester material. The backside is a paper that will dull your scissors. So go ahead and make sure you use scissors intended for use for paper when cutting our stabilizer to the size that you need it to be. That's also another reason I don't like using my rotary cutter, because we're cutting through paper and it will dull your rotary cutter blades prematurely as well. Don't throw away your scraps, because your scraps can be used to patch the embroidery stabilizer for your next embroidery project. To get the stabilizer to release from the release liner, which is the shiny side, I fold and crease and then go back the opposite way and crease, and then kind of just flip my finger on the point going in both directions, and eventually that separates from the paper. And then you're able to peel it back. And I peel back just one side to begin with and fold back the paper. Take the frame that I'm choosing to use for this project and flip it upside down. This side of the hoop has an uneven surface that is designed to allow you to apply your sticker stabilizer directly onto it. And unlike a jelly jar, when you place a sticker on it, you can't get it off. This is designed for it to peel off without leaving any sticky residue on the frame. That said, if you leave the stabilizer on the hoop for a very long period of time or carry it on an airplane for some reason, well, it gets a tighter bond to the hoop, and you may have to clean the backside of this hoop periodically depending upon your experience. If you do, there's a product called Goo Gone that you can wipe onto the back of the hoop and wipe it off. If you do use that, I recommend you then also wash it with dish soap in the kitchen before you go ahead and apply your next piece of stick and tear stabilizer. Always want to make sure this is clean so that it gets a nice secure bond. And this release liner is now something available for you to use for possibly some other crafting that you have. This is not a freezer paper. First you rub to secure that first section, and then going across to the opposite side, putting my fingers on top of the hoop and off the side of the hoop to keep it from slipping as I stretch the stabilizer, and applying that down in little bits and rubbing. Then spin it around and do the same thing on the next one. And what you want to be sure of is that inside the inner perimeter of the frame that you don't see any waving of the stabilizer like you do right here. If you do, you have the ability to lift and stretch that out again until you know that the entire circumference of the frame has an equal and even stretch to it. And when you're finished, it'll sound like a drum. And it is sticky when you push against it, but not when you slide left and right. This is what you call a pressure sensitive stabilizer. Because of this stabilizer, you can actually embroider on towels. There is a link to the video showing how to monogram this towel, and this was done, both of these were done using a straight stitch on my sewing machine. The stick and rinse stabilizer that is included in the kit allows you to print on it with your inkjet printer, and you can also trace using Sharpie markers or different markers directly onto this off of the instructions that are included. So you could do this little octopus or these flowers and create your own embroidery. These are in essence your embroidery designs, and you can also use a light tablet and trace these designs, or any design that you find anywhere, even things you find online, you can print them out and create embroidery. This is how I did Flounder. I printed him out on the stick and rinse stabilizer and applied him to the fabric and then colored through the design to create this beautiful embroidery. You can also ink fabrics and quilt over them using techniques that kind of resemble embroidery, and then quilt the remaining area of the actual design, as you see in these fiber art projects that I have filmed and you can learn more about if you join my free school. And adding quilting to other projects like this fabric card for Mother's Day makes using the Octi-Hoops with other projects not only possible, but really, really fun. Like this pillow where we've incorporated applique and couching with yarn, and inside of the center of the actual sunflower, using the Octi-Hoops and the free motion quilting process, this center actually has a texture that resembles a sunflower. I know you're going to find these hoops aren't just fun, but they also are very helpful in mending. Be sure to check out my YouTube channel playlist called On the Mend, where I mend things using the Octi-Hoops. They can help you get places you cannot get with a traditional sewing foot. So don't throw out the outfit, because you can transform things that you would normally throw in the bin and make them into other projects, or just make that outfit stand out even more. This is a design that I printed off of the internet. I searched for adult coloring book designs, and this was a free coloring book design that you could print out. So I printed it out on the paper first, then I taped a piece of our stick and rinse over it and printed it again and created a sticker. Now I could have just left it black and white, but you can also color through it with different markers to give you an idea of what it's going to look like before you sew it onto your fabric. And I used the stick and rinse to create the monogram for this towel. We also have free designs for you to print out. Follow the links in the description below this video or in the instructions that came with the kit, so that you can find your way to these different free patterns for you to use, including some quilting designs that will help you to become good or proficient at free motion quilting. And you can even embroider directly onto wedding veils. It is so exciting. I can't wait to show you in this instructional video all of the different things that you can do with your new Octi-Hoops. In order to navigate your way through this video more efficiently, we have a timeline available for you to refer to in the instructions included with the video. So be sure to look at that if you want to zoom right through and get to just what you want to learn in this moment right now. Or you can sit back and relax and enjoy the video in its entirety so that you can get excited and learn all that you can do, well, most of what you can do with our Octi-Hoops, because we have more videos coming out all the time on our YouTube channel. So be sure to become a subscriber so you can create designs like this. This was done using the Octi-Hoops. These flowers are quilt patterns that I did by just tracing a design through my actual quilt using a light box. And you can substitute a window for one of these light boxes. However, we do offer a wonderful quality light box selection at our website. The Octi-Hoops are even capable of quilting through 1, 2, 3, 4 layers of batting without adding a sewing machine foot onto your machine. This is another video on my YouTube channel. Be sure to refer to creativefeet.com for any questions that you might have and to reach out to us should you need assistance in learning any of the techniques or if you need any products that you see me using in this educational video. You can also join Create with Clare Rowley, which is a site that you will find at create.clarerowley.com. Inside of the school, which is free for you to join, inside of the school you'll find an Octi-Hoops section or topics where people share, and I add different patterns. Be sure to check this out as an additional source of educational material for you to get the full benefits out of your new Octi-Hoop set. Keep in mind that you can embroider on any garment, any size garment, on fabric that you intend to use for a quilt or applique. It is really entirely up to you. But preparing your fabric is very important so that you have a good experience. One of the items that we use in conjunction with the stick and tear stabilizer is our Hold Light stabilizer. And it is a stabilizer that you find at creativefeet.com. It has a hummingbird on the label, and I iron this onto the backside of items that I embroider to protect the fabric from becoming permanently bonded to the stick and tear, such as terry cloth towels, because the loops in the terry cloth towels can become stuck to the stick and tear, and then when you go to remove the actual embroidery from the hoop, you can get some of those loops pulled out from the towel. So the Hold Light eliminates that. Be sure to pick some of that up, as we do not include that in the kit. It's just too thin and people were throwing it away thinking it was trash. Be sure to go to our YouTube channel and click on my playlist link where you will find an Octi-Hoops playlist. It is jam-packed with more that you can do with your Octi-Hoop kit. You receive 3 octagon-shaped embroidery frames for free motion and 2 handles that drop into all 8 sides of each of the frames. Each of our frames are also engineered for a stabilizer to attach to the back with an uneven surface. And the stabilizer that we're going to use in this lesson is the Stick and Tear. It is a polyester adhesive back stabilizer that is designed to adhere onto the back of the Octi-Hoop. You cut it to size for the hoop that you're going to use, and then peel back the release liner, which actually is a paper. And then with the adhesive side, you adhere it to the back of the frame. Pull. And now you have the ability to lift and reposition to make this taut so that your fabric can be loose. And you can hear the sound of a drum, then you know that you're ready to apply your fabric. Now we can embroider on just about any garment or any size or style of fabric. And so I'm going to show you just this tiny little piece of material. It would be very difficult to hoop this using any other method, so we just go ahead and place your fabric down. And you can position it anywhere in the frame and reposition it until you get it just right. And now we're going to use this Stick and Rinse adhesive back water soluble stabilizer that you print on using your inkjet printer. You release the release liner and position your butterfly wherever you like on your garment. Rub it to secure it to the surface, and we are just about ready to begin the embroidery process. I have a black bobbin thread in because this is primarily going to be dark color threads. I'm also using a stretch 9014 needle and a 40 weight polyester embroidery quality thread. And now I'm going to select a straight stitch, and my tension is reduced 1 number. So this is a sticker that I printed out, an actual butterfly, and you can also print out designs that came with your Octi-Hoop kit. There we go. We go ahead and bring up our bobbin thread. Think of this as coloring. When you have this crayon-like handle in your hand, it will feel a little reminiscent to coloring. And then elbows down whenever you write. Normally when you write, you hold on to the paper with the hand you don't write with, and then you put the pen down and you draw with your arms down in a rested position. So you want to make sure that you duplicate that when you're using the Octi-Hoop kit. Everything, your body just rests on the machine. And then I set my speed control to about 3/4 of its full speed, so that I'm not surprised by it ever accelerating really fast. You begin sewing, cut off your tails, and in case I didn't say it, you bring your bobbin thread up before you begin, if needed on your machine. Some machines do not require you do that. And then you just start to draw over the color that you see on your sticker. If you want to put details in your butterfly, if there are details in the actual sticker that you've chosen to print out, then you can follow that design. After a while, you'll feel a bit more comfortable and be able to speed up. You'll notice that I'm using my right hand. I'm right-handed. If you were left-handed, you would simply switch your hand positioning like this. Put your left hand there, and your right hand would hold or help to guide the frame. And you'll notice I just kind of use one finger, so it's not a lot of holding with the hand you don't write with. It's just kind of like a stabilizing, just like you stabilize the paper. I also lowered the feed dogs on this machine, but have frequently left them up. So if you are not able to lower the feed dogs on your machine, go ahead and give it a try and see if you have any trouble. I have yet to have any trouble leaving the feed dogs up. The faster you move your hands, the larger the stitch will be. And if your machine is running slower, the stitches will be even larger. After you do this for a while, you'll realize just how simple it is. It really is just like coloring. So if you like to outline your area before filling it in, when you color in a coloring book, then you'll probably feel the same way about embroidering. Now you can see that there are no antennae on this butterfly. You could trace your own before and kind of sketch it out with a pencil to make sure you like it before you sew over it. Or if you are artistically inclined, you're going to enjoy how you can also freeform some of your design by just drawing as you would draw with a crayon or a pencil or a pen. Now you do receive 2 handles in the kit, so you might want to try out holding both handles at the same time in the beginning to see which hand feels most comfortable. Make sure that you don't push down at all on the frame. It glides real easy on the surface of the machine. So as I'm holding this, I'm holding it as if it was a paintbrush or a marker, a very light touch. You don't need to squeeze on that either. You can hold it in any position that feels comfortable or natural to you. And remember to keep your shoulders relaxed and rest on the sewing machine. The surface of your machine is not level. Keeping your hands near the actual needle area will keep it from pivoting or rocking like this. So you can see my machine is not level, and so my fingers usually to the side of the needle, holding onto the frame there, and I'm barely holding on with that hand or with that finger. The nice thing about using these straight stitches is you can position the hoop in any position you like, as the needle is just going straight up and down. It's up to you which direction you move the hoop to create your stitch. You might find it difficult to see over the row of stitching that you've already sewn, and find that you fill in better if you have the hoop facing you and you move the hoop up and down. That way you can see the separation between one row of stitching and the next. And you can tell if there's a space between your rows of stitching easier if you move it up and down. But remember, there's really no rules. This is very simple coloring with your sewing machine without any risk of stretching or distorting your fabric. Now's your chance to go around and really make sure you filled in the black before you go ahead and do the blue. And to really check, what I like to do is take the fabric out and hold it up to the light. And if you can't see any spaces with a light shining behind it, then it is very likely that you've done a good job in filling that in. If not, you have the opportunity to go back now and fill in those areas. Now we're ready to change to the blue. Always make sure that you raise the presser foot whenever changing your thread, or the tension discs will be closed on the thread. And then when you go to begin sewing again, you might get what they call bird's nest underneath, where there's a lot of loops underneath your hoop. That also can happen from forgetting to actually lower the presser foot. If you have a machine that doesn't warn you if you leave your foot up like this one will. And since we're just changing color, we don't need to bring the bobbin thread up. Make sure you cut your tails. It's real easy to put it off and then your mind gets distracted by that little thread hanging there. Try to relax. Make sure if you need glasses that you're wearing them so you can see well what you're doing. Now I can choose to switch on the body to a different color or go ahead and use the same color thread. It's up to you as to how complex you want your design to look. You can also move your hoop side to side to create what appears to be a zigzag stitch even though you're not using a zigzag stitch. So you just slow down the machine and move the hoops side to side, and now you have a zigzag stitch even though you have not switched to a zigzag stitch on your machine. And it gives a more three-dimension appearance on the body. Now go ahead and go to the next wing. I'll tell you what, I sure do enjoy doing machine embroidery free motion. It is really fun. And it's so fast, getting ready and embroidering through the garment instead of having to worry about, there's no worries now of your fabric shrinking. If you pre-shrink first, you use polyester threads, then you can embroider directly on sweatshirts and t-shirts. Just about done with that. Now I could go back with some black and make those lines more pronounced, and also go a little bit outside the lines here and add little blue dots on the wing. You'll hear that pluck sound. That's the sound of the machine saying there's a lot of stitches in that spot. Move over. And that's why you saw me leave these spaces in here before. Go over here. It's a good idea to just cut your thread and tie off, but you can see here I just carried over, and I'll have to go back and cut that carryover stitch. So it's better to tie your knots off as you go. And there you have your butterfly, and we go ahead and pull. Actually, first I'm going to take the stick and rinse and pull it in toward the embroidery. So you just hold down on the fabric, pull in and like you're peeling back rather than pulling up, and it'll help to keep the stick and tear taut so that you can patch it and do another embroidery without having to replace the entire sheet on the back of the hoop. This is also a time when I love to use my tweezers. This is a water-soluble adhesive stabilizer that I'm peeling off, so if some of it doesn't come off the first time you wash it, it will go away, or you can just run it under a sink. If you were doing a lot of straight stitches, I would recommend that you actually just wet it and don't try to pull it away, because you might pull some of the threads up. And now to remove the fabric from the hoop, you peel it towards the butterfly. Just keep peeling it in. And then it starts to tear. And there you can see your cutout area and your beautiful embroidery. I hope you enjoyed learning the basics of free motion machine embroidery using the Octi-Hoop kit. I'm going to show you how we use the Octi-Hoops to embroider directly on baseball caps. Doesn't seem like it would be possible, but it is. And to easily place your design on the cap, we're going to use the stick and rinse stickers. You can actually draw directly on our stick and rinse stabilizer, tracing over coloring books, magazines, or any other printed media that you have. You simply lay it down on top, and I would secure it using some tape so that it doesn't move around on you while you draw. And then you simply use a marker and you can draw right directly on our stick and rinse stabilizer. You can even color it in as the printing is on here should you want. You can also use water-soluble crayons and markers that you find in the store for children, so you don't have to worry about any of the ink getting on the fabric or remaining on the fabric after you're done with your project. There's a variety of different style caps, and inside we have different issues to deal with where your needle could break if it struck them. So you want to make sure that you use a 90-14 universal needle on this. And we want to get this sweatband to stay out of the way, so you can take tape and just kind of tape it down. That'll help it stay out of your way. And then positioning your embroidery on the front of the baseball cap might seem difficult, but if you use the stickers, it's not going to be difficult at all. So here I have this little sticker, and I'm going to apply it to the front of the baseball cap, and that'll make it so I know exactly where it's going to sew out. In order to embroider the baseball cap, we're going to have to flatten it out like this. So we trace and cut out a piece of stick and tear that's large enough to fit onto the back of the medium frame. And pull back and peel it back. Stretching across. Okay, when you hear the sound of the drum, you know you're ready. But before we place the cap in here, we first need to place the sticker onto the baseball cap. And since this is such a light colored pink that it's really kind of difficult to see, and a large area of thread will need to be stitched out for that to cover nicely, I'm going to place some of our pink cover up underneath the sticker and stitch through that, and then I don't need to use as much thread. It won't take as long as well, and the cap won't be as bulky. To do this, you simply peel off the release liner of the sticker and set it down. And you want to cut a piece bigger than the heart, but not so that it extends out to the outer borders of the sticker. Then you reposition it until you know that it is going to lay flat. This would definitely have been better to have cut my stick and rinse wider than the actual embroidery area. And then you position the sticker how you want it to be on the front of your cap. Looking at the distance the embroidery goes from both sides, I think I need to move this just a little bit that way. The most important part would be that the bottom of the lettering appears straight in relation to the bill. So you could use a ruler or a measuring tape to see that you are equal distance from both sides of that. To help hold the area down that has the cover up underneath, I'm going to put some of my basting glue on my finger and go from behind and kind of spread it out. So that it lays nice against the cap. And now we're ready to lay the baseball cap down. You can see how I'm pulling the back of the cap out. Anything you can do to help it lay flat within the frame. And unfortunately that tape did not hold on the sweatband. So I'm going to actually cut into the sweatband a little bit to help pull that back as I lay it down. So you can see inside how everything is laying flat. As long as the fabric is laying flat, you can embroider right over that. I've chosen my colors of thread, and I'm going to use a white bobbin underneath. And this is a 100 weight polyester white bobbin thread. If you use a lighter weight or thinner bobbin thread, you can lay more thread on the top of the material, which is where we need it most to cover up the fabric. Because of the thick area where the seam is on the baseball cap, this area here, I'm going to use a free motion foot with the Octi-Hoops so that it holds that fabric down better, eliminating my fingers from having to be placed onto the baseball cap. This is the style foot that I prefer, like a horseshoe shape, so that there's full visibility in the front area. And you can see that the frame is low enough to slide underneath with the presser foot on. Now before beginning, you want to choose the direction you want your stitches to go, and I think I'd like this whole design for the stitching to go up and down. That means that if my hoop is sideways, I move it this way. If my hoop is up and down, or if I'm able to read the word quilting, then I'll move it up and down. And if I were to move it slightly off, I would have to still move it in that direction where it goes up and down. This can help you to not lose track of that fact by drawing little arrows on your material in the outer areas so that you know not to lose that stitch direction. First, bring up your bobbin thread. We're going to sew a few stitches. And then cut that off. You're going to hear a little bit more plucking sound as the needle is exiting the vinyl material, the cover-up material. It tends to make a louder noise, but there's nothing to be concerned about. One of the most important things is to keep your elbows down. Sometimes I need to push the machine further away from me so that I can rest on the table. If you're having to hold your arms up, you don't have as much accuracy when sewing, just as you wouldn't have as much accuracy when writing if you had your arm in the air. So we always want to keep our hand down, elbows down, shoulders relaxed. Have a little talk with yourself before you begin. Say, come on now, relax, it's time to embroider. And we go ahead and begin. I'm doing small, tight stitches along the border of the heart so that when I go to tear this away, the cover-up tears clean away. And the reason that lifted a little bit is because the stick and rinse wasn't far enough and I didn't put enough of the basting glue back there. So I'm going back again. This is to perforate the fabric cover so that when I go to tear it away, it comes clean away. And then I do what I call cross hatching. I'm just going to go back and forth a few times to secure the fabric cover. I'm just going to go over. This will help the fabric cover lay nice and flat while you do your embroidery. Hop over. Now the foot's getting close there, so I'm just going to spin the hoop around. Choose another hole on the frame and continue. So I'm going to start my up and down movement. Good place to start it because it's so small I might forget it's there. So up and down. It's not as easy to see your work with the foot on, but keeps the baseball cap holding down better for you. And there I'm going over the thick area, and the foot helps to hold that down. The fact that I'm using a 90-14 needle, and I don't have to worry about my needle breaking. Another reason the needle doesn't break is that I don't use that needle down option on the machine. I always have that needle stop up. So here I'm doing a little forward and back stitch along the edge of the embroidery. It makes a nice finish along the edge of that. If you hear the plucking get too loud, then you know you're sitting in the same spot too long, or you have too much thread in that area. Okay, and again, keeping my stitch direction, always going up and down in this particular design. See how nicely that fills in, and the pink below it prevents any white from showing through. Pay attention to your little arrows so you don't lose track in each section. Only doing that forward and reverse along the outer edge of the heart, not along areas where the other colors will come in, because that will create too much bulk. To go fast when I can, so that is what I did in here in the middle. I didn't go too far in either direction, so I didn't have to worry about going in areas where I didn't want to. And now I can take my time and go slower along the edges. Then we go back and forth again to give it a nice finished edge. People are not going to believe you did this free motion. Take your time, go slow in these little small areas. Now I'm going to hop over. Did that all with my feed dogs up. I forget all the time because it really doesn't have a lot of bearing on it, but I'll go ahead and lower it for the rest of this time. Now the risk you have with doing these little hopovers or creating these carryover stitches is that it might get stuck on the foot. So after you secure the next area, go ahead and take a moment and cut. But before I think I'm finished, I'm going to verify and look all around and see if there's any spots where I could have stitched more. I think there's a little area there and a little spot there. Or should you ever take your project out of the hoop and then realize that you did not finish an area, you can always just lay it right back in the hoop on top of the stick and tear by patching it and placing it back down. Okay, so there's an area I didn't fill in, another area, and I'm just going to cut my thread instead of wasting the thread to carry over. Now if you do this, if you travel across, make sure you don't just drag it across because you'll end up with a straight line of thread. You have to go up and down in order for it to not show that you were lazy and hopped over that way. And I think I'm done with the pink. But I'm wrong because I gotta do the inside of the needle. It's always a good idea to hold it up and look at it in different angles to see that you did in fact cover all of that area that you wanted to. And now I have to decide what stitch I'm going to use for the monogram, and I'm going to use a zigzag stitch and have my stitches run this direction. That will make it appear higher than the heart below it. You could also go around the heart with a darker color pink to outline it should you want to, but I kind of like the lighter look. So since I'm going to go with a darker thread, I'm going to change my bobbin thread to a darker bobbin thread. This is a good time to look at the back and cut off any carryover stitches on the back side. Especially if you can't lower your feed dogs on your machine. Even though I'm going to do a zigzag, I'm going to outline the queue here with a straight stitch first. And that kind of holds it down. It's easier to see before you lay a bunch of thread down that you have this nice clean edge that you're creating. The plucking sound you're hearing is simply the area where there's lots of thread. Okay, now I can either switch to a zigzag stitch, or I can simply move the hoop in a zigzag manner. And in the areas where I would have to taper and keep changing my zigzag stitch width, I prefer to just move the hoop in a zigzag motion rather than switching to a zigzag stitch. And you can just do one stitch at a time. I did not do a perfectly straight across angle. Clean up that edge. See how beautiful that looks? Now I'm going very slow, taking my time so that I really am happy with the work. Now I'm keeping the hoop so that the entire word quilting will be slightly at an angle because I chose that when I started. If you pay attention before you begin, I could have done it a lot easier by having it go direct or side to side as I had originally planned. But isn't it nice that I can do these really large stitches, actually wider than my sewing machine could normally zigzag. If the cap is in your way, lift up. Pull whatever it is aside and lay it down flat again. Now I have this tail the whole time, so you want to make sure you don't do that to yourself. Isn't that a beautiful cue? Now I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest. See you on the other side. key to doing well is to slow down. Don't feel like you have to do this really fast just because it seems as though people sew really fast. I'm taking my time and I'm doing this really slow. I just sped up the camera so that you could see it and not have to sit there and wait for me to do it in a very slow manner. Now for choosing the color for the heart. I'm going to leave the dark colored thread in there because the pink that I've chosen is a darker color pink. And on these hearts I want them to go up and down the stitch direction. And I'm going to zigzag motion these to get these in so they stick up more than the big pink heart does. Cut your carryover threads. Looking very nice, isn't it? Now with the needle, and we are just about done. Now, I want the needle to appear rounded, so I'm going to stitch it in that direction across the needle to give it that roundness appearance. It's kind of hard to do that though with it being so small at the tip, so I've changed my mind. I'm just going to run my stitches down the needle. So I got a nice point on that end. This is where the needle crosses over. Now to clean up all the little stitches that are crossing over. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and pull the cap off of the hoop by just pulling it toward the center. Always pulling to the middle so that this doesn't happen, and we can patch that and use that stabilizer for our next project. So you can see how nice and clean this pulled away. We're just going to tear off the little bit that didn't come off. And now to pull off the stuff on the top. See how that tore clean away because we used so many stitches along there. Pulling toward the embroidery and kind of at an angle. Push down on the cap and then pull and tear. Now after this cap has been washed, it'll look the same as it does right now because of the permanent pink stabilizer that we put behind that thread. Whenever you choose to use our vinyl cover, remember it will not wash out. So you don't want to use it in areas where you have cross stitching, or for instance, if you were to look at a tennis racket, you would only want to use the cover up where the handle is, not where all of the netting is of the actual tennis racket. There I have a cute little baseball cap that says I love quilting. Now I'm going to show you how to use the Octi-Hoops for free motion quilting. Free motion quilting has been done traditionally using hoops that require you to apply downward pressure, but with the Octi-Hoops our quilt will actually float on the sewing machine. First, before I created this quilt that I have here, I took a template and put it on a light box and then traced the top layer of material with that design using a wash away marker called Mark Be Gone. And then you trace over it. You'll see some of the ink is still visible here, but that is because I left it so that you could see. The rest is all completely gone. I used just a damp washcloth to wipe it off. And here we go. We have just a layer of batting in between two layers of fabric. And we take and place this underneath the presser foot. Oh, but there is no foot. So remember, you remove the presser foot and you remove a lot of the problems associated with quilting. One, puckering, the other, it causes the fabrics to kind of slide, and without the presser foot in the way, you can see very well what you're quilting. So we'll be able to follow along the line that's disappearing on, or will disappear. Go ahead and place one hoop underneath and the other frame on top. And beneath, you're going to rest your hand on the frame that's beneath it and place the handle in the smaller frame on top. And the opposite hand that you don't write with brings the corners of the bottom and the top frame into one another. And the quilt floats, real light touch. You don't have to push down at all. So you're going to choose where you're going to begin and bring your bobbin thread up through. I set my speed at 3/4 speed, and if you don't have speed control, just want to be mindful of the speed and try to keep the same speed as you go. This is speeding because I am steering, and I'm steering with this crayon-like tool that I drop into the hole. I'm now a little uncomfortable, so I'm going to slide the bottom frame over, slide the top frame over, and continue. So there's no need to stop as you proceed across your quilt. Slide the frame down, slide the frame down. Bring the corners into one another and continue your path. If you feel that you're getting uncomfortable, stop and readjust. Make sure that you're always elbows down so you have more control on your steering. And if the frame starts to slide off the edge, then you can put your thumb beneath the frame on the bottom and in on the top frame. So you really are kind of lifting the frames up as the quilt floats. So you're not putting any burden on your hands or your wrists and elbows, shoulders, and I feel super relaxed when I do this now. Slide down, slide down. Make sure you're comfortable, elbows down, shoulders relaxed, and continue. Make sure you use a wash away marker, not a air dry or you'll find your lines starting to disappear on you. Slide over. Slide. And you can just slide and rearrange if you're uncomfortable. As I'm quilting, I'm not looking at the needle, I'm kind of looking ahead of where I'm going, seeking out the line that I drew. Just like when you write, you don't look at the tip of the pen as you write, you look where you're going. And make sure that you don't actually lay your arm on the actual quilt, or it will stop it from feeding through as you move. Now you can see that my hand, now I have my thumb on top and my 3 other fingers underneath holding the quilt up from beneath. So the position of the body changes as I go. I'm not really conscious of it, and I've learned to just kind of relax as I quilt, not pay much attention to the position that my hand is holding, because as long as you're not feeling discomfort from squeezing and pushing, and you're liking what you're seeing, then you know that all is good. So you can see that even though the size of this frame is relatively small, that it doesn't matter how big the item is that you're quilting, because you aren't actually hooking this frame to anything. Just bringing the corners of one into the corner of the other is all that we're doing to make these frames move as one. Make sure those tails don't distract you. Move them out of the way, and this is how we'll have a nice clean knot at the end. Almost done. Now I did a few stitches and tied a knot. If you don't like to do that, you can go ahead and take all your threads through the eye of a hand sewing needle and then take that needle down and in and through and pull it out, and your threads get stuck inside the quilt so nobody can tell where your stitches began or ended. And since I'm not trying to win a competition here, I just tied a knot. This will make a really nice pillow front, so if you're not ready to make a quilt, perhaps you're ready for a pillow top. And on the back side, you'll see that there are no puckers on the back of this, despite the fact that this hasn't been basted in any way. And you are welcome to baste your quilts should you want to. However, I don't suggest that you use safety pins. I hope you enjoyed learning the basics of free motion quilting using your Octi-Hoops, and look forward to bringing you many other quilting techniques that you can do with these wonderful tools. If you have ever wondered about doing free motion quilting using more than one layer of batting, well, this is the video for you, because I'm going to test not just one, not two, not three, but 4 layers of batting in between 2 layers of fabric. And I'm going to do it without a foot using my Octi-Hoops. Do you think I can do it? Stick around and find out. If you're new to my channel, my name is Clare Rowley. I'm the inventor of the Creative Feet line of sewing machine products and the Octi-Hoops that you see here. What I have in here are 4 layers of batting in between 2 layers of material. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that even though we don't have a foot on the machine, we have 1 hoop beneath and the other hoop goes on top. And all you really do is bring the corner of one into the corner of the other. Now before I began, I did use our liquid-based basting glue, and I didn't actually secure the fabric to the batting, but I did use some of the water-soluble stabilizer in between each layer of batting. That way the battings would become one inside of the quilt, even though there are 4 layers. So you can see here I have 1 frame beneath and the other frame on top, and you just bring 1 hoop into the corner of the other. And it's your job to keep the frame together with your left hand if you're right-handed, or your right hand if you're left-handed. I've decided to do hearts on my quilt, but you can do any design that you like. And as you progress across the quilt, you just scoot the bottom frame up and bring the top frame in, and then continue. In case you're wondering, I have lowered the feed dogs on the sewing machine. And if you want to see the back, there's the back, and you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 layers of batting. So thick I can barely slide it out. Isn't that exciting? Well, if you have my Octi-Hoops, I dare you to try this. And if you're a little nervous to go ahead and use this without a foot this time because you're doing free motion with so many layers of batting, well, feel free to go ahead and use your free motion quilting foot, because remember, the Octi-Hoops allow you to use a foot or not use a foot. This is my first time trying it. I did 3 layers before, but I never pushed it to 4. I hope you enjoyed this educational video on your new Octi-Hoop kit, that you feel inspired and ready to give it a go, and I look forward to seeing you in the classroom. Thanks for watching. Bye.